Magic is found in every room, where people connect over a shared purpose. In this weekly podcast, Luke, Hannah and Chris explore the role of purpose, courage, mindset and culture in every leader's quest for transformational performance.
Hello everybody, welcome to Magic in the Room. We are recording in downtown Chicago today. I'm Luke Freeman.
I'm Hannah Broderud, and I am really thrilled to have our guest Neil Hughes on today, the man behind the voice. If you've wondered, why is there someone with a British accent who gives the introduction to this podcast? Well, you're going to find out why today, and you may recognize the voice. So we're going to, in just a moment, we'll introduce Neil.
Yeah, there is a whole story there that we'll jump into. But just to give some context first, so we are in our month talking about mindset. So the previous episode, if you haven't listened to it, we talked about growth mindset. We talked about having an outward mindset, all of the science behind that. And also remember that there's a download at magicintheroom.com that will help walk you through reflections on your mindset, how to develop your mindset. And really, like, we know that people who are willing to grow, who have a mindset that allows them to try new things, experience more success. And there's a reason Neil's our expert today, because he helped us change our mindset around the podcast and has an amazing wealth of experience there. So we're going to jump into that, but download at magicintheroom.com. Really encourage you to do some reflection on your own and develop your mindset as we jump into this.
All right. So Neil, welcome to Magic in the Room.
Thank you for inviting me. And the magic certainly is in the room. I'm taking a look around all the tech you've got here. You guys have got a great setup.
Well, we've leveled up a little bit. This is our fourth season. So we've got a full 3 years of doing this now. And it really started with, actually, as Luke alluded to, we're in downtown Chicago when we're recording this at the Magic in the Room at the no longer virtual conference hosted by Sarah Elkins. And that's where I met you the first time, probably 5 years ago now, in Denver.
5 years ago
Yes.
This week, yeah.
And I remember you giving a workshop on how to start a podcast. And I kind of filed it away. I was brand new. I had just left corporate America. I just started a brand new business. I didn't know exactly what I was doing yet. I had an idea of what I thought I'd be doing. And one of the things, it was inspiring to hear you talk about a podcast. And I thought, man, someday it would be really cool to do a podcast, right? But before we dive into that story and how we got started, let's talk about you. Neil, you are a tech columnist, a #1 best-selling author on Amazon, a freelance writer, a ghostwriter, and a podcaster that helps businesses create engaging written and audio content. You're also the host of Tech Talks Daily, the Citrix Ready podcast, the Switched On Thinking podcast by Netgear, and author of Great TED Talks Innovation, which reached #1 on the Amazon Hot New Releases list. So that is quite a list of credentials.
I'm officially intimidated now.
Yeah, no, right?
I just kind of thought Neil was this nice guy who helped us. No, I knew all of that. But seriously, super impressive.
Yeah. So, okay, how did you get there? How did you get started with doing all this stuff?
Well, I'd love to say it was a big master plan, but I was quite simply an IT guy. I was just the IT tech guy. Yeah. And when I was in business meetings and you've got different stakeholders from different departments, you'd have the finance guy, you'd have someone from catering, you'd have someone from HR. As soon as the IT person opened their mouth and started talking about SQL licenses and PowerShell scripts, suddenly their eyes would roll in the back of their head and they'd be thinking about what they want to eat at night. So from that point, I thought, what I'm going to do, I'm going to start writing about this and the benefits that technology and the value that technology brings, but in a language that everyone can understand. So ultimately, you get everyone in that meeting room, everyone can just pick up exactly what it's talking about. So I started writing on LinkedIn, and I started writing 2 articles a week. And a lot of people say, how, Neil, I want to start writing. I say, well, just do it. Just start writing. And well, I haven't got time. Well, you do have enough time to write 2 blogs a week. And at the end of a year, again, we're talking about mindset today. At the end of the year, you've got 100 articles, SEO rich, against your name, against your brand. And then at the end of that year, I had a call from LinkedIn, and they said, Neil, we want to feature as a LinkedIn top voice, the number 2 tech voice for technology.
Wow.
So that was back in 2015, I think that was. And from that moment, my LinkedIn lit up like a Vegas machine. And I had Inc. magazine said, do you want a tech column? Yeah, okay. I say yes far too much. That's probably something you both know. I said, yeah, we'll do the Inc. column. And then there was something else. Just so many different opportunities. And I thought to myself, if I've got, at the time, I think I had 1 million readers of my articles on LinkedIn. And I thought, well, if I've got 1 million viewers here, wouldn't it be better if I wrote the article, but the people I'm speaking to and speaking about have my voice and their voice on there? And I pitched this to Inc. magazine at the time, and they let me do it for 2 episodes. But I quickly got the understanding that they didn't want me talking nicely about people. I think there was a few journos selling links back in the day. You write me a puff piece, I'll give you some money, and that will go out there. There was a bit of that going on, so editors were guarded straight away.
Yeah.
And they said, well, instead of doing that, Neil, can you do listicles instead? 10 better ways to be an entrepreneur. And I'm like, I can, but it's not really what I want to do and what I want to achieve. So I thought, I'm going to do things what I want to do. I want to do it my way. And what better way than launching a podcast? And from that moment, I launched a podcast.
Yeah.
And it's Tech Talks Daily. You have an actual daily podcast. We release 1 episode a week. You release one every single day.
Sometimes more.
And how long have you been doing this? When you can't help
yourself.
The only reason I went daily was I had a big backlog of people wanting to come on. And again, I say yes too much.
Yeah.
And when I went daily to get rid of that backlog. But what happens then is I'm currently booked up till April. We're recording this in February. So to give you an idea, I've got 80 interviews booked in at the moment. And I've also got 22 edited and ready to go. And I've got a couple of events to attend in March, and they're going to want regular content. So I will have to push some of those interviews out earlier.
So you've been doing daily or sometimes more than daily.
I record, just to give you an idea of how often I record 10 episodes a week, 2 a day, Monday to Friday.
Okay. And how long have you been doing that?
I've been doing that for probably the last 4 years.
About 4 years. So how many episodes is that?
I'm currently at 2,300.
2,300. Wow. So we are now in episode 150 something. And we've been doing it for a little over 3 years. But there's something you told us when we started that it'll probably take you about 150 episodes or so to get good at this. So that's been our mile marker. When we reach episode 150, we're going to be good at this. And we're past that now. So we feel like we've kind of arrived, but then like compared to 2,000 some, it doesn't seem that much.
I think you've just got to keep trying to get better and try and improve. If I go back to some of those early episodes, I really wince and cringe. My voice has completely changed. Obviously, I'm more confident the more you do it. You've got the 10,000 rule thing that the more you do something, the more confident you get.
Yeah.
So, but just keep on trucking. That's all I can say.
Yeah.
Well, isn't that the story of humanity? Yeah. A horizon line that the closer you get to it, the farther it recedes. And I mean, I love just acknowledging that and saying, okay, we've hit 150. Like, what's it going to be like when we hit 300?
Yeah.
And so, and really, I've learned from you, Neil, because I remember when we were talking about this, I was like, well, I mean, I didn't say this, but in my mind, I was like, well, if it doesn't sound like Radiolab or This American Life, like, I don't want to do it. Like, I want things to be good. Yeah. And that's not how you get good. You don't get good automatically, with the snap of your fingers. It really takes mastery. And
mastery
creating
takes
this
practice.
Right. Creating this thing that we have created, has probably been one of the things in my life, more than a lot of other things that has driven that lesson home, and helped me really internalize that idea of just start and don't let that vision of greatness
Yeah.
be the enemy of, or the barrier that keeps you from just being good for a little while,
Right.
or even being kind of
Bad.
shitty for a little while.
Yeah.
Like start bad, and then eventually you won't be bad. And so I don't know. I'm really grateful to you, Neil, for helping me along on that journey.
No, I'm happy to help anyone and anyone's listening to this. And that's not me selling my service. If someone just said, Neil, can you just give me a little bit of wisdom or a few tips, and I'll happily do that. And I always say version 1 is better than version none. And
Yeah.
stick with that. And it's just about starting and then building on that little by little.
Yeah. So we just did our episode on mindset, as we mentioned. And so this is a great example of growth mindset. So when we talk about growth mindset, it's the opposite of a fixed mindset. So a fixed mindset is really the belief that the skills I have today, the skills I was born with, that I got handed to me in a bag, like that's all the tools I have. That's all the skill I have.
Either I'm good at something or I'm not. And that it doesn't change. Like I'm just not good at podcasting, so I'm not even going to try. Like that would be a fixed mindset.
And someone with a growth mindset says, hey, if I work at something, I can learn it. I can improve. It's possible. And it takes work. So whenever I hear your story, Neil, I hear just growth mindset, this belief that starting and mastering things like is possible if you work towards it. So I'm curious, like, do you think about it that way? And if so, like, tell me about when did you start believing that just starting was that one was better than none, right? Tell me like how you came to believe that. Has it always been just part of your DNA?
No, I came to this gig quite late in life, really. It would probably be late 30s, early 40s that something just kind of clicked in me. And I was raised on the kind of, you go to school, you get a job, you get a house, and then, I don't know, 30, 40 years later, you get a carriage clock or a watch. But we don't need to do that. And I think many people get caught into the trap of thinking it's too risky, it's too scary to make that leap. And my answer is, you don't need to make the leap. I, for 18 months, did the day job at IT from 9 till 5, and then I came home, and 5 till 10, I did my thing. And I know there's a lot of people look down on that at the moment, say you shouldn't be just putting all your money into work and all your time into work because you've got family, you've got other commitments. Completely agree. But if you are watching Netflix, if you're playing video games, could you just spend a couple of hours a day doing something for you to help you grow?
Yeah.
And then if you can prove that business, and that's the thing here, to completely remove risk, you can prove the business yourself. And what I did, I had my day job, got X amount of money coming in there. And then I said to myself, set up a business account, set up a company. When this account, when that reaches, I think at the time it was £10,000, which let's say $12,000, for example. If I can get $12,000 in there, then I've kind of proved something here.
Yeah.
And then when I hit that milestone, then I'm like, oh man.
Oh, now I've done it.
What have I gotten myself into?
Now what am I going to do? But yeah. So I think it's such a luxury to prove it. It's got legs. I mean, if you've got a partner, you can say, look, I'm going to do this. I know you're concerned, but I've got the figures to back this up, and you can just remove that risk.
Yeah.
That's kind of what got me
So
here.
I love that idea of, you just kind of did this as a side hustle for a while. You did it because it's something you were interested in. You did it because it's something that helped you grow and develop and expand kind of your horizon and what you were doing. And now it's turned into kind of this big thing. So do you still work the day job?
No, the day job went 2017. So it's like, 5-6 years now that I've been completely solo.
Yeah.
And the only thing that scares me now is ever returning to that old life. I remember clear as day being terrified of making that leap.
Yeah.
But equally now, all I'm thinking is, why didn't I do it sooner? And to go back to that and making somebody else happy, making somebody else rich, that is, that is a scary thought. And I suppose that is another thing that makes me want to get better.
Yeah.
I'm a writer. I edit podcasts. ChatGPT comes out. People can write stuff on their own. There's a whole other conversation around that, but there's also AI editing tools. So you've got to get better at what you do to be useful and to offer value to people.
Yeah. So speaking of scary, you have interviewed some pretty famous and influential guests over, the course of your podcast. I see names like William Shatner, Daniel Burrus, Gary Vaynerchuk, Wendy Williams. what does it feel like? Do you ever feel some kind of intimidation or, like those are some big names. Like, how did you end up talking to those people?
I like before you came in here. Like, how were you?
I mean, there's
Now
some
that
really
is
famous
scary.
people in this room.
What was scariest about that moment was when I got those big names, I
Yeah.
was still had the day job, and I didn't even have my office set up properly.
Wow.
And if to give anyone a peek behind the curtain, I was actually recording those interviews from a Blue Yeti microphone, sat on the bed. And the reason I was in the bedroom was because there was more soft furnishing there. It was better for echo.
Right.
So, but I was interviewing several startups a week, and all that, by earning your stripes in the field, I was actually building relationships with the PR firms. And those PR firms were suddenly seeing me as the go-to tech guy. We need somebody to talk to. Neil will do it. Neil will do it. Neil will do it. So then when the big name drops, it was almost like I'd proved my worth, and they sent me a message. But I get all these random emails about the various ed tech, artificial intelligence, and every now and again you'll get a, Neil, I'm curious, would you be interested in speaking with William Shatner?
Wow.
Whoa, is there a wind up here? The Captain James T. Kirk?
Yeah.
William Shatner? Hell to the yeah is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Same with Wendy Williams, and there's been so many others. There's John Scully, the guy. Great story with John Scully. I don't know if you know who he is, but he was the guy that Steve Jobs went up to him when he was the head of Pepsi. And he said, John, do you want to sell sugar water for the rest of your life? Or do you want to come with me and change the world?
Wow.
So that was a magic moment. And John Scully did go on to fire Steve Jobs, which again is in the film and stuff. And Jeff Daniels paid him in the film, so get him to talk about that. So yeah, so many cool stories.
Man. So yeah, that's pretty mind-blowing stuff. And it just started with being willing to say yes. And you said you do say yes a lot. And sometimes I tend to do that too. And sometimes I tend to over-obligate myself.
Yeah, I'm guilty.
Right? But look at the difference that's made, right? Just choosing to, and that's the cool thing about mindset. We get to choose our mindset. You could have chosen to say, no, I'm an IT guy. I'm going to stay in my box. This is what I do. And that's all I'm ever going to do. But you started. It was a little bit of a similar conversation that we had. So I had met you about 5 years ago at this conference. And I think your original intention was just to give people some tips on how to start a podcast, right? Yeah. Like, I can teach people how to do this. And I don't know how many podcasts have started from people who were in the room the day you gave that talk. And there's several, Sarah Elkin's podcast, Your Stories Don't Define You, How You Tell Them Will. She's been on our show a few times, and multiple others, some of whom we're meeting this week. And, I was brand new to kind of starting a business, and I thought it would be cool someday to have a podcast, but I didn't know if I could do it by myself. I didn't know if I had an idea that was good enough. I didn't feel quite ready to do it, right? And then fast forward about a year or so, we're at the end of 2019, right before COVID, by the way. And I'm in Europe, and I'm having conversations with Chris and Luke. We had met with a marketing firm that kind of helped us clarify, some of our strategy around our brand. And one of the ideas they suggested was you should start a podcast. And Luke and Chris both were like, oh, no, it's too much, like technical lift. And do we really have the time? And Luke is like, if it's not perfect, why do we do it at all? And Chris is like, I don't want to learn all the technology. And I was like, I know a guy. Neil said he can help us, right? And then we actually ended up contracting you to help us get started with some of the tech. And several of, that I think turned into a whole little separate business revenue stream for you, as people didn't, and I've heard you share this, they didn't really want you to teach them how to do a podcast. They just wanted you to do it for them or produce it for them.
That was a real moment for me, because I went in there saying, look, anybody can do this. I will teach you. I will show you how easy it is. I'll even do a training course. I'll do some videos. It's so easy. I will set you up. And then somebody pulled me to one side. I cannot remember who it was, but they said, Neil, I don't want you to teach me. I want you to do it for me.
Yeah.
And that kind of just flicked the switch. So again, it wasn't something that I was planning on doing.
Right. But you said yes. You said yes to the opportunity.
Yeah.
And now there's so many different podcasts that have spun off because you helped them get started.
Yeah. So I want to go back to all of the folks that you've interviewed, all of these leaders who have done exceptional things. And what are your takeaways? I mean, I'm sure just all of those conversations, there's so many, oh my gosh, like light bulb moments. So when you think about mindset and think about like, what is it that Joe listener, could learn from all of your distilled wisdom, speaking to all of those leaders, like what are some of the takeaways that have stuck with you?
So that's a question I get a lot, because 2,300 interviews is a lot of conversations.
Yeah.
And there are a few themes that really do stand out. And similar to my own story, nobody's got a master plan out there. I would even argue there are no experts. There are people that have that growth mindset, that push themselves. And most, I would say, have a curious mind. They're not just going to take things at face value. They'll ask questions, but why this? Why that? What if I did this? And that curiosity really seems to drive them. And another key characteristic is the role of serendipity. We all like to think we're in charge of our own destiny and we make stuff happen. The amount of stories that make the hairs on the back of your neck stand on end. I'll just share a few very, very quickly. There was a guy who had an idea for a business. He needed a developer. He wasn't a tech guy. He got quite far in, but ultimately he needed that developer and he was getting nowhere. He got on the plane, sat next to a guy on the plane. That guy was a developer that would go on to start his business for him. And then there was another one where a guy, I think he flew from Thailand all the way to the US to pitch his startup and get investment. And this was his last shot, last roll of the dice. And he got there and he got turned down. And he was on his way back and he was looking quite crestfallen, waiting at I think it was waiting for his luggage. Yeah. And this guy just stepped in and said, "You okay? You look a bit down." And he explained what the problem was. He said, "I'm a VC. Pop round tomorrow and we'll talk about this." He invested in the company and turned it around. So serendipity plays a big role. And I would say it's almost like, from all the conversation I've had, the universe will give everyone that little nudge in the right direction. And that little nudge might just be a few words of encouragement when you really need it. Yeah. But I would say the difference between those people and a lot of people is they don't look for those signs and they don't act on those signs. So it's a bit of both. So yeah, curious mindset and serendipity. And that growth mindset of wanting to do well. I think it's a combination.
Yeah, so this whole season, we're exploring different aspects of intentional leadership, and mindset is part of that. And the way we talk about being an intentional leader is that you notice something that could be better or that could be different, and then you choose to do something about it. Yeah. And then you have the courage to take the action, right? And I think that's what I'm hearing from you here is like, notice what's around you. Pay attention when there is an opportunity, when there is serendipity, when there's maybe there's a moment where you have a choice to take an action or not, right? Yeah. Pay attention to that and do something and just start. Engage with that person, have that conversation, introduce yourself, say yes to William Shatner.
Well, there was that film, was it Sliding Doors with Gwyneth Paltrow? Yes, and you go in one path that will take you there, and if you don't, then it takes you somewhere completely different. Yeah. And we all know somebody that claims that they had the idea for Uber first. Everyone, don't be that guy.
Yeah.
Right.
If you had that idea, do something about it.
Yeah. So another thing that we talk about with leadership is really understanding what's the highest possible good I can achieve in the world and letting that vision drive a lot of that decision making around where am I going to place my bets? Where am I going to invest? So I'm curious for you, what do you think of as the highest possible good that Neil Hughes, can provide to the world? And how does that direct your decision making?
Whoa, that's a big question. One of the things that I'm guilty of is being face down and just creating content, just busy. But now and again, I do have to step back and think, well, where do I take this from here? And so one of the things I do with the podcast, I try not to put myself in the spotlight. I try and put the guest in the spotlight. It's all about them. One of the things that I would like to do more is possibly the public speaking thing, but I don't enjoy it, so I don't know. But if I go right back to the very, very beginning, it's all about how can technology bring value to a business?
Yeah.
I think we've all seen technology looking for a problem.
Sure.
Yeah, there's so many different examples of it out there, and people, when in a business, I've seen time and time again from my IT days that it's all about, oh, we need tech, get this tech, everyone's talking about this tech, let's start with the problem and then look at how that can work. And also, I think demystifying technology, it's a scary time. We've talked ChatGPT, a lot of people thinking this is going to, it could destroy my role, what am I going to do now? But then on the flip side of that, it could make you work so much more productive. If that does go in Office 365, those emails, those documents that you can't find, if you can just ask a machine to get you that file.
Yeah.
If you want to do a PowerPoint presentation in 8 different languages, you can and get it straight out on the internet because it will do it for you.
Yeah.
So I think it's what I would like to be a part of is that bridge between the world of business and the world of tech, and kind of show people it's nothing to be afraid of. We've all seen those on our news feeds, the Terminator robots with the red eyes. Let's retire that. Let's see how it can work, because ChatGPT won't make you redundant, but somebody that knows how to use it and be more productive than you, that's how you could possibly lose your job.
Yeah.
And so it's just constantly moving. And another thing on the tech front, if there's anyone from any background that is interested in joining tech career, cybersecurity has currently got a 0% unemployment rate. In fact, it's actually negative. So if you've got the right qualification, you'll get snapped up very, very quickly. And not only that, you can work anywhere in the world. Australia, I think, alone have said, or Australia Pacific have said there will be a shortfall of 300,000 workers that they need with those skills. And all we hear about is cybersecurity threats, etc. So,
Right.
But most importantly is you find your passion, what it is you want to do, what excites you.
Yeah.
And it sounds easy, but that's the hardest part, because a lot of people listening will say, hey, but I don't know what I want to do.
Yeah.
Well, I love that word picture that you used of wanting to be a bridge between technology and business, or technology and human innovation.
Yeah.
And I think for me, like, that's what excites me. I'm like, hey, any advancements in technology make creative work, the work of innovation, the work of managing people and dealing with human emotion, like that much more valuable.
Yeah.
And so people who make themselves bridges, who understand how to use the technology tools, but apply them to human problems, right? And apply them to helping create communities that are thriving, right?
Yeah.
And that's really the outcome that we're going to. Like, how do communities of human beings thrive? That should be the aim of business in my perspective.
Yeah.
How do we take technology and be a bridge to make that happen? Like, if people can figure that out, you're never going to not have a job.
Yeah. And for someone that writes for a living as well, when I go on ChatGPT, and I can be quite verbose when talking about tech subjects and things, it's made me realise that anyone can write that stuff.
Yeah.
What I need to do is write with more personality, bring more of me into those articles, because creativity, management, strategy, and all those kind of things is what artificial intelligence can't actually replicate. If you look at the doctor that has got a poor bedside manner, that doctor's going to run into problems very quickly, because artificial intelligence will be able to work out all the different test results and give you a good guide, whereas the doctor with the awesome bedside manner and can use tech, that is going to be the best doctor.
Okay, have you tested it yet? Have you said, write an article about X subject in the style of Neil Hughes?
Oh,
I'll test it for you. I'll bring it to dinner.
Well, I asked it. I said, ChatGPT, can you write a bio for Neil C. Hughes? So it will go out there and search for me and write a bio. And here's my thing with ChatGPT. It has got an accuracy problem. It's like the guy in the bar. He will tell you everything. And you come away thinking, wow, that guy is amazing. He knows everything. He's so clever. He's so smart. But when you scratch beneath the surface, everything that was written was very plausible. Was it true? It was stretching the truth a little bit, shall we say. So so anyone that does use it, I would say just check your sources and just be aware of the accuracy.
Well, there's always going to be a place for subject matter experts. So, I mean, for me, as I've used it and experimented with it, if I know enough to do the fact checking, it's a very useful tool. If it's a subject that I can't fact check it very well, it's a challenge.
You don't know.
All right, Neil, this has been a really fascinating conversation. I'd love to just kind of wrap up with some final thoughts on mindset and just, watching what you've done over the last few years, how your mindset has just kept expanding around what's possible, what you can do. And to me, that's been really inspiring, right? And as we got started very small, what we've done has grown, right? You said just start, and we started by recording our conversations via Zoom. I was in Europe at the time. Chris and Luke were in Oklahoma. We didn't even know COVID was about to hit, right? Where everybody went online and started talking via Zoom. And so we got started with this podcast just recording remotely. And we were able to continue to grow that through all of 2020 as the world shut down. We kept having these conversations. Then we were able to meet in person again, and we started recording. Sometimes we record online, sometimes when possible we record in person, and now we have a whole mobile studio that we bring with us to conferences when we get to connect with people in person. So our mindset around the podcast has grown, and it's been really inspiring. So I'd love to hear from you, just kind of any final thoughts that you want to share with leaders who are listening. How can you cultivate a growth mindset?
For me, it's all about the 10,000 hour thing. You've got to put the hours in. You're not going to be an expert overnight. You've got to just grind away. And one of the things I get, I'm sorry to bring it back to podcasting, but one of the things people always say to me, they get to episode 5 and say, right, great, now I've got 5 episodes. How do I monetize this? And I'm like, you don't monetize anything. You've got to serve your audience. It's not about you. You've got to serve your audience. Yeah. And whatever it is that you're doing, we've all got to serve somebody. So whatever it is you're doing, you've got to serve that audience and get better and master what you do and keep improving, keep moving forward. I'm going to sound like Sylvester Stallone and say that's how winning is done, but that's essentially what you've got to do. And don't tread water. And I think everybody's got that inside them, don't they? Do you think?
Yeah. We call it latent human potential.
Yeah.
Like there's something latent, and I think for listeners, that's my encouragement is like, how do you tap the latent potential and the latent passion that's inside you? And my takeaway from talking with you, Neil, is just the power of habits and the power of commitment.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Just the power of commitment to a daily or weekly, I am going to do this, and having the fortitude to make ourselves do it, even when it's hard. I'm thinking about you, 2 LinkedIn articles a week for a year.
That's
I'm like, well, I know what I would do. I would get 2 or 3 weeks in, and then I'd be like, oh, I had a really busy day today.
Yeah.
And my kids have their thing after school, and I need to get to bed. But you don't do that, right? You keep moving forward. And like, that's really challenging to me and also encouraging. And I think, listeners should take that to heart.
And I think the biggest thing, if for anybody listening, is find something that you love. As the old saying goes, if you find something you love, you never have to work again. In the workplace, I worked a 41-hour week. Now, with my own business, although it looks very glamorous and you see all these podcasts going out, I must work 70, 80-hour week, but none of it feels like work. Yeah. I just thoroughly enjoy everything I do. And that is the thing. If you can find something you enjoy and then look at how far you can take that and be an expert within your niche, I think that's the way to go.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for spending some time with us today. Really fun to see you. I'm excited about hanging out the next couple of days. So that's going to be great. All right, let me wrap this up. So for listeners, remember the download to help you think about your mindset and move towards having a growth mindset is at magicintheroom.com. You can log in there, get your download, share it out with your team, do whatever you want with it. And you can find us at purposeandperformancegroup.com. We're easy to find on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. All right, Neil, where can people find you?
So my website is techblogwriter.co.uk, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram at Neil C. Hughes, and email techblogwriter@outlook.com. All I'll say, though, is don't just connect with me. Tell me you listen to me on this podcast, and if you've got a question, just ask away.
Love it. Love it. All right. Thank you so much, Neil. I'm going to read us out. Magic in the Room is hosted by Chris Province, the no show today, Hannah Broadrood, and Luke Freeman, produced by Ben West. Our theme music is by Evan Grimm, and you can find his music on Apple Music. This episode today recorded on site in downtown Chicago during the No Longer Virtual Conference. Find out more about the conference at elkinsconsulting.com, ELKINS consulting.com. We'd love to see you here at the next one next year. Magic in the Room is a production of Purpose and Performance Group. Find us at purposeandperformancegroup.com. You can find previous episodes at magicintheroom.com. Go out there and start a habit that's going to change the world.